list. I see Commissioner Bondima
We're
here.
getting a lot
On
of
a few more.
feedback from one of the calls.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Felicia.
people
Can you?
without their phones on mute.
Bandim is here.
Yeah, Bondima's here, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
we aren't coming through the feed, so you're not hearing us. So we just need to take care of a technical challenge right now.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll wait. Thank you.
Now I'm using the mic. Commissioner Richardson, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Not as loud, but I can hear you.
Okay. Commissioner Richardson, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
We're ready when you are, Chair Richardson.
Okay. You're ready. Awesome. So good evening, everyone. Hold on. Is my camera on? Oh, yeah, it's on. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Board Chair Johnette Richardson. I'd like to welcome you all to the May 24th public board meeting of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. If you have not yet done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff, please turn your video off. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. I will go through this roll call for each vote. Commissioner Bondima.
Present.
Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Oh, good. Commissioner Chinya.
Present.
Commissioner Griffin.
I'm here.
Commissioner Horwitz.
Present.
Commissioner McFadden.
I'm present, Commissioner Richardson, and before I move on, I just would like to take a moment to celebrate that student artwork and the music that we saw in the beginning of the presentation. It was fantastic, and we are still in this month, so I make sure that we celebrate our brilliant young people and their teachers that work with them every day.
Thank you very much for that. It was lovely. Commissioner Reed.
Present.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Sally.
Present.
And I am present. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
Bad.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. You're kind of breaking in and out too, by the way. Is there a second?
Second, Bondima.
I heard Bondima, so I'll go with that. Thank you, Commissioner Bondima. All in favor? Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chinya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
And I am in favor. That motion passes with all in favor. Sorry about that. All right, Commissioner McFadden, would you do us the honors of reading our condolences?
Sure. We would like to take the time to recognize the passing of City Schools employees and students. They will be remembered fondly by the greater City Schools community. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to their families and to their friends. Michael Clapp started his career with City Schools on September 6, 2006, where he served the staff and the students for 15 years and 8 months. As an applications developer, 3, under the Human Resource Management team in our Information Technology Department. He was later promoted to an applications developer 4 under the Student Information Systems. Mr. Clapp unfortunately departed on May 6, 2022, and will be missed greatly by his family, friends, and City Schools. Jasmine Brunson, Jr., was a third-year student at Carver Vocational Technical High School. Jasmine was pursuing his CTE certification in construction professions or carpentry. All of his teachers enjoyed teaching him, especially his mathematics teachers, who shared that he was one of the smartest students in class and always had a joke or two to brighten their day. Jazz will be missed by his family, Carver family, friends, and the entire city of Baltimore. Please join me, colleagues and members of the public who are with us in taking a moment of silence for these city schools members. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a motion to approve the prior open session minutes?
So moved, Jenya.
Thank you, Commissioner Chenya. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. All in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
and I am in favor. That motion passes with all in favor. Is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Sally.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally. Is there a second?
Second, Roberts.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. All in favor? Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally.
Right. Yes, sorry about that.
Okay, and I am in favor. That motion passes with 9 in favor. Thank you. As we approach the end of the school year, it is important to pause and reflect on the tremendous efforts by our students and staff to continue achieving academic and personal goals during these unprecedented times. The school board would like to personally congratulate the class of 2022 as they will soon embark on a new journey. Whether you are earning a diploma or a program certificate, your hard work deserves some warm, thoughtful words of recognition and encouragement. As you cherish the fruits of your own labor, we wish that success continues to follow you with everything you do. Keep developing those dreams and talents that make you who you are. Most importantly, keep learning. The ability to learn is essential to survival. City Schools offers a variety of summer learning programs for elementary, middle, and high school students. These programs can provide structure to young people's summer experiences, making them more likely to stay engaged and focused. Our summer learning programs are adaptive and innovative to ensure children proceed at a leisurely pace and have access to quality summer learning opportunities. In fact, the mayor's office is offering high school students the chance to make up course credits while getting paid. Eligible students can make up to 3 credits this summer and learn while they earn by participating in the city's Youth Works program. Summer learning is just another way the district works diligently to ensure we uphold the academic standards of those we serve. As we push forward, we are optimistic about the new adventures that await us. For now, we celebrate the class of 2022's persevering spirit. You represent Baltimore City Schools with integrity and professionalism. Congratulations again, and we are excited to see where your journey will take you. Commissioner Roberts, would you mind reading our retirees list?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, we will be honoring employees retiring with 30-plus years of experience. Is Ms. Paula Parker with us this evening? Okay.
Yes,
Paula
yes, I'm
Parker.
present.
Hi, Ms.
Sorry.
Parker. How are you?
Hi, how are you all? I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
No problem at all. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Congratulations. Would you like to offer a few remarks?
Well, first, I just wanted to first and foremost thank really Baltimore City Public Schools for giving me my career and allowing me to complete it all the way to the very end. And those that are coming behind me, just hang in there. You'll get there soon too. You know, it's a little rough at times, but it's well worth it. So yes, thank you.
That was really kind of you, Ms. Parker. I'm going to share a little bit about you. Ms. Paula Parker began working with Baltimore City Public Schools on July 12, 2005.
Okay, let me explain. Okay, so I actually came in 1988, but there was a layoff in 2003, and I left service at that time because of that, and then came back on board. But unfortunately, I did something that I should not have done, which kind of took it kept my years of service, but as far as the retirement end of it, I had to kind of start over.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Parker. I actually was going to go on to say she most recently served as a secretary at Claremont High. Ms. Parker faithfully served the children of Baltimore City Public Schools for 32 years and 1 month. Thank you so much, Ms. Parker.
You're welcome.
Our next retiree, Ms. Deborah Mcrae. Are you with us this evening, Ms. Mcrae? Okay, share a little bit about Ms. Mcrae. Deborah Mcrae began working with Baltimore City Public Schools on March 20th, 1981. She most recently served as an elementary teacher, Matthew A. Henson Elementary. Ms. Mcrae faithfully served the children of Baltimore City Public Schools for 41 years and 1 month. Thank you, Ms. Mcrae.
Yay.
And Ms. Ann Seafon, are you with us this evening?
Yes, I am. It's pronounced Sealfon.
Sealfon, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Ms. Sealfon. Do you have a few remarks you'd like to offer?
Basically, I just want to thank all my co-workers, friends, and everybody some of them that turned into people like family, and at all the different places I got to work with all the people.
Thank you so much for your kind remarks. I'm going to share a little about you as well. Anne began working with Baltimore City Public Schools on October 15th, 1979. She most recently served as an educational associate, 12-month suspension services. Ms. Silfold faithfully served the children of Baltimore City Public Schools for 41 years and 10 months. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I give it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. I will now acknowledge some gifts and donations City Schools has received. Thank you to our donors and supporters for your generous support. A gift of $5,000 for student backpacks to be used to support school readiness from the Baltimore Community Foundation provided to the Community Engagement Department for support to schools. So we want to thank the Baltimore Community Foundation for that donation. Is there a motion to approve the personnel and quasi-judicial matters?
So move, Reed.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second?
Second, Bondima.
Thank you, Commissioner Bondima. All in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
and I am in favor. That motion passes with 9 in favor. I will now turn it over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite Interim Chief Sarah Deal for this evening's PEP agenda.
All right, good evening. Here's tonight's PEP. It is recommended that Andrea Morrison, currently Educational Associate, Patterson High, be appointed Assistant Principal, Forest Park High, effective July 1st, 2022. Recommended that Cherie Davis, currently Chief Education Officer at CRD Consulting, be appointed Assistant Principal at Elmore Henderson, a Johns Hopkins Partnership School, effective July 1st, 2022. It's recommended that Claude Smith, currently Teacher Secondary at Anne Arundel County Public Schools, be appointed Assistant Principal at Vivian T. Thomas Medical Arts Academy High, effective July 1, 2022. It's recommended that Davelyn Cunningham, currently Teacher Special Ed at KIPP Harmony, be appointed Assistant Principal, KIPP Harmony, effective July 1, 2022. It's recommended that Galen Laird, currently Principal Resident at Thomas Johnson Elementary Middle, be appointed Assistant Principal at Baltimore Montessori Public Charter Elementary, effective July 1st, 2022. It's recommended that Kerwin Barber, currently Educational Associate at the historic Cherry Hill Elementary Middle School, be appointed Assistant Principal, Garrett Heights, effective July 1st, 2022. It's recommended that Larry Strickland, currently Teacher Secondary at Dickey Hill Elementary Middle, be appointed Assistant Principal at Stadium School Middle, effective July 1st, 2022. It's recommended that Tiffany Bird, currently Coordinator of Athletics, Interscholastic Athletics, be appointed Director Athletics, Interscholastic Athletics, effective May 25th, 2022. It's recommended that Amparo Cutrona, currently Educational Associate at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High, be appointed Assistant Principal, Forest Park High, effective July 1st, 2022. It's recommended that Mark Sawyer, currently School Business Manager at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, be appointed Interim Assistant Principal, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, effective July 1st through June 30th, 2023. Matthew Barrow, currently Coordinator, MTSS, Multi-Tiered System of Support, be reassigned Coordinator, Academic Tutoring, Multi-Tiered System of Support, effective May 25th, 2022. Poppy Fahey, currently Educational Specialist 2, Specialized Instruction, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, be reassigned to Educational Specialist 2, Strategy, Special Education, and Student Support Services, effective July 1st, 2022. It is recommended that Holly Bedwell, currently Senior Director of Data-Driven School Improvement Strategies, New York City Department of Education, be appointed Director, Knowledge Management in the Knowledge Management Department, effective July 5th, 2022. Patrick McDonald, currently Assistant Principal, Excel Academy at Francis M. Wood High, be reassigned to Assistant Principal, Fort Worthington Elementary, effective July 1st, 2022. Nikisha Powell, currently Assistant Principal at Thomas Jefferson Elementary Middle, be reassigned to Assistant Principal, Harvard Heights Elementary, effective July 1st, 2022. Jonathan Amrock, currently Assistant Principal, Baltimore International Academy Elementary Middle, be reassigned to Assistant Principal, Forest Park High, effective July 1st, 2022. And finally, Jerry Somerville, currently Assistant Principal, Fort Worthington Elementary, be reassigned to Assistant Principal, National Academy Foundation High, effective July 1st, 2022. Congratulations, Dr. Santelises.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. And congratulations to everyone on this evening's PEP agenda. I am now incredibly pleased to begin my evening comments by paying tribute to a true public servant and a longtime supporter of city schools who has joined us this evening. I'm going to invite Delegate Maggie McIntosh to turn on her video now. I got a chance to see her earlier, and we know she's here. Yeah. And I hope you hear all that applause, Delegate McIntosh. Delegate McIntosh recently announced that she will be retiring after nearly 30 years of service in the Maryland House of Delegates. I am not ashamed to say that I shed a tear when I heard that news. Throughout that time, she has been a dedicated legislator and a steadfast support of public education across the state of Maryland. Building upon her tenure as an art teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools early in her career, Delegate McIntosh has been the consummate education advocate throughout her career in public service. In association with her colleagues at the city and state level, Delegate McIntosh was a leader in the successful passage of the 21st Century School Buildings Program that is transforming the learning environment for tens of thousands of Baltimore students. She was also the lead architect of the impactful Kerwin legislation, as well as the subsequent Built to Learn legislation. As important as these educational accomplishments are, they do not reflect all of Delegate McIntosh's significant achievements in every area of importance in the lives of Maryland's families, for which she was recently named to the Baltimore Sun Business and Civic Hall of Fame. In recognition of her accomplishments, Governor Hogan recently signed House Bill 1469, establishing the Maggie McIntosh School Arts Fund that will direct $250,000 per year for art products in city schools. I can think of no better tribute to Maggie's love for the arts and her dedication to our students. I know that Chair Richardson and the board are also looking forward to honoring Delegate McIntosh in person in the fall, but I wanted to take this opportunity to express my personal appreciation for her advice, support, and friendship. I also want to say, as I have said in other places, that in the last 6 years, I have seen quite a few elected officials who like to talk about equity when it's out front and when it's convenient. It is a quite smaller set of people who actually walk the talk, who place their own personal, professional capital on the line in the hidden rooms. When deals get cut, she never cuts children out of what she agrees to. Maggie McIntosh has personally demonstrated to me a renewed faith in a life of public service in elected office at a time in our nation when many question whether this kind of goodwill still exists. I am therefore honored to virtually present this proclamation to the Honorable Maggie McIntosh on behalf of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners and the leadership, the staff, students, and families of over 77,000 currently Baltimore City public school students. Whereas Delegate Maggie McIntosh has served the interests of Baltimore City and Maryland with distinction throughout her 30-year career in the Maryland House of Delegates. And whereas Delegate Maggie McIntosh was a leading force in the passage of landmark educational legislation, including the 21st Century School Buildings Program, the Kerwin legislation, and the Built to Learn Act. And whereas Delegate Maggie McIntosh has been a relentless advocate and steadfast supporter of Baltimore City Public Schools and the cause of public education throughout the state of Maryland. And whereas Delegate Maggie McIntosh has been a model of selfless public service and a valued friend to the citizens, families, and young people, particularly those whose voice is often overlooked, across the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. Now, therefore, the Baltimore City Board of Commissioners and the staff and leadership of Baltimore City Public Schools do hereby proclaim our thanks and best wishes to the Honorable Maggie McIntosh in grateful recognition of her dedicated service to the families and young people of Baltimore City. Signed, Johnette A. Richardson, Chair, Board of School Commissioners, and Sonia Santelises, Chief Executive Officer. So before I invite Delegate McIntosh to speak, which she will do soon, Chief of Staff Allison Perkins Cohen would also like to add a few words of thanks to Delegate McIntosh. Allison?
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't be here without saying something about Delegate McIntosh. I am so grateful to everything that Maggie has done for us over the last several years. When I first started in this job, I didn't know Maggie. I'd heard a lot about Delegate McIntosh, but I didn't know her. I vividly remember meeting her for the first time at the One World Cafe. We had a meeting and immediately just liked her. She's a straight shooter. She's down to earth. She's smart. She's funny. She just gets straight to the point, which I love. And that was the year, people may recall, we had a $130 million budget gap, just a ever so small little budget gap that we had to go talk to Maggie about to get fixed. And we didn't have the relationship with her that we do now. We didn't have the built up the credibility that we have now, but Maggie had us covered from the beginning and was working to get that first of many problems for us fixed. What Maggie is able to accomplish in a single legislative session each year is more than most people could hope for in their entire careers, what Maggie does for us. So Sonia and Melissa and I had a kind of running joke about the calls that we would get from Maggie during session, that woe is to the person who would get the call without a piece of paper handy and a pen, or with a computer, without a computer, because even if it was the fourth time you talked to Maggie that day, which it often was during the legislative session, there was guaranteed that there was a long list of legislative matters she had taken care of for us that you had to quickly write down to figure out so you would remember it later. And in fact, we quickly instituted the practice of calling each other immediately after we spoke with Maggie to run through everything we just heard, because we were sure we were going to forget something because she had accomplished so much. I also remember always going to Maggie with just kind of crazy suggestions that I thought, okay, now I've gone too far. We can't ask for this. This is just too much. This is crossing a line. And 9 times out of 10, by the time I made the suggestion, either Maggie was immediately, yeah, we'll do that, and she would go do it, or she had already thought of it and was already working on it. So there was really nothing too over the top to ask Maggie to get done for Baltimore City students. As I thought about Maggie this morning, I really thought about the fact that Maggie has the qualities that I admire in the people I admire most, like Maggie in my life, are people that share the qualities of Maggie, which are people who are just quietly working behind the scenes to do what's right for young people. And she doesn't need or seek accolades. She doesn't seek the limelight. She just does what needs to get done for our students always. And we've cut, I think a great example is that this year we cut the 24th ribbon for the 21st century program, which is there's nobody who is more responsible for that than Maggie McIntosh. And I think it was the 23rd ribbon cutting we finally got her to come to after we begged her to come, so that we could appropriately recognize her. She, that's really not, she wanted to see school, but she's really not there to get the recognition. And I just feel so personally blessed to live so close to that example and learn from that example of the selfless way that she put students first. And so grateful for working with you, Maggie, and so sad to see you leave, but happy that you and Diane will be in the Airstream and seeing the country and doing what you've deserve, which is a great time in retirement. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And Madam Chair, I know you would like to have words too. Sorry, Delegate McIntosh, we are going to get to the guest of honor, but I need to make sure we love on you properly. Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are you referring to me or are you referring to the board chair?
You know what?
You can go, let her go.
Okay.
Dr.
See,
Southfield.
I always defer to the chair of the committee, you know that. But let me just say, first of all, I mean, thank you. Thank you for your words. Thank you for working with me these last, particularly the last 8 years, when I got in a position in Annapolis where I felt that I really could do something significant for not just Baltimore City school students, but students all across Maryland. You know, I have to say, I say this on a day when we are once again reminded that being a teacher in the public schools and being a student in our classrooms isn't necessarily the safest place to be, is it? And so I think, you know, about those families right now in Texas who've lost 14 children and a teacher to a gunman. We must continue not just to make sure that our students learn, but make sure our students are safe. And I know that you're doing that. But, you know, this is another tragic day in our country. And so, you know, being here at the school board with you, hearing our CEO speak, chief of staff speak, it's very, very moving. Look, I want to compliment all of you because I will tell you, I've seen in particular under this CEO and your wonderful staff, the growth and direction that students are getting in our school system. I want to say to the school board, I think you have done a marvelous job in the past years. And I commend you for having the courage to do things that are even unpopular. But they are needed so that students are safe, or needed because students need to be in a building that is modern and that helps them learn and doesn't keep them, in fact, in a place where there's roadblocks to their learning. It's been a joy for me to work with all of you, the school board, CEO, and your staff. You've been terrific. And yes, as Allison said, there were those phone calls where I got off the phone and I thought, she's got to be kidding. I mean, she did not ask me to do that, did she? But, you know, we got half of them done, maybe even more than half of them done. But the requests were always geared towards making sure that students in Baltimore City had a fighting chance. I do look back over many years in the legislature and realize that until we passed the blueprint, there was not really an acknowledgement of the kind of help that our students deserve. And I will say to you that I believe the blueprint has changed the dialogue in Annapolis about children who are growing up in families of poverty or concentrations of poverty. But if ever I hear the dialogue switch back again to helping kids who have the largest delegations on the floor of the House delegates, I'll be the first one there to try to turn it back around. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're on the right course, which means that you all, and the board and staff, will have some heavy lifting to do, but in the end, I do believe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Baltimore City School students are going to see their graduation rates go up. They're going to see their test scores go up. They're going to see their lives turn around. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I realized that we have multiple chairs, but thank you so much for everything. And I love that at the end of your comments, you were speaking life, and in a lot of ways, prophetically speaking life.
Yeah.
And that has been how you always are. We thank you. The board chair is going to defer because the board is going to have you back in person.
Good.
Chair McIntosh. So when we have you back in person, she will have her words then, but just know it's heartfelt and this doesn't get you out of a meal. So I'm just letting you know that this doesn't take the place.
I'm there.
Okay. Thank you again for everything. And hopefully you got to see all your shout outs in the chat too.
I did. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Okay. I would now like to introduce Chief Tina Highcupboard, Monique Sims, Bridget Blount from Baltimore's Promise, and Stacy Van Horn from the T. Rowe Price Foundation, who will offer a brief PowerPoint presentation about their work on developing the Strategic Partnerships Framework, a plan to build more effective partnerships with external stakeholders tied to student academic and wholeness outcomes.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises and the board for letting us come tonight. And I heard the brief part, so we're going to try to be brief on this. So we want to share our new approach to strategic alignment with partner resources and support to promote equitable access to opportunities by supporting decision-making about how to best connect partners to achieve social impact. Monique is going to share our slide for us, so I'm going to keep going because we have limited time, but when you get it up, Monique, we're ready to go. So when schools work and community organizations work together, everyone benefits, right? We recognize that partner programs with strong relationships with school teachers and principals have shown to be successful in reinforcing and encouraging positive student outcomes. These partnerships can provide a continuum of care and a range of services to help ease student transitions and facilitate access to extended learning opportunities, as well as resources and supports for our families and the growth and development of our students and families. So we need partners. We cannot do this alone. If my slide was up, we're getting it up in a second, it will show you how this work is aligned to the blueprint, the 3R plan, the board priority 4 and 5, where we acknowledge that we need all of us as a community to come together to support and care about our students. Partners provide program quality, foster better alignment to school and day curriculum, and support a shared vision for learning that maximizes resources and supports. This is an unprecedented opportunity. We recognize that our current reality, we don't have a formalized way of acknowledging existing partners. We don't know which partners are working in which schools, how to support them. And a recommended approach is to develop a landscape of existing partnerships with our schools and our district, develop a results framework, effectiveness framework, so we can actually look at outcomes and impact of partners. Develop a joint capacity building framework to build the capacity of partners and schools together, and develop a plan to operationalize the strategy. Next slide, please, Monique. So this partnership, we went down this road with Baltimore's Promise and the T. Rowe Price Foundation supporting us in this work. And I just want to align that all of us three working together set out a plan for how partners, schools, districts, and families can all work together and deepen our community partnerships. I'm going to give Bridget and Stacey Van Horn a moment to say about a few words about our partnership with them in this work.
Thank you so much, Chief Highcupboard, and thank you, Dr. Santelises and school board commissioners for the opportunity to speak on behalf of this amazing partnership. As Chief Highcupboard mentioned, my name is Bridget Blount, and I am the Chief Impact Officer for Baltimore's Promise. Working with Baltimore's Promise, we know community-based partners are critical because of their close proximity to youth and families and their ability to provide additional supports both during and after the school day ends. Completing the Baltimore City Youth Opportunities Landscape, Baltimore's Promise has identified more than 2,500 community-based programs that serve youth in Baltimore. Working with and listening to hundreds of young people, we know that they want engaged staff members that reflect them in their communities. They want youth leadership opportunities and exposure, knowledge, and skill building opportunities. We know that this opportunity can have a big impact towards aligning both data to understand the collective impact of these programs, as well as towards improving student success. So we just want to thank everyone for this opportunity. We want to thank T. Rowe Price and Baltimore City Public Schools for their partnership. And I'll turn it over now to Stacy.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stacy Van Horn. I'm with the T. Rowe Price Foundation and just want to share a couple remarks about why the foundation supported this initiative. And we know that while philanthropic dollars are limited compared to public funding streams, we believe our funding can be strategically deployed to help launch new work and support or accelerate important shifts in existing work. So we made a multi-year commitment and with the intention to support strong school community partnerships through developing a framework, best practices, procedures, et cetera, with the long-term hope that we would see increases in student achievement and outcomes across the district. And during the process of the implementation, we've learned that there's important work to be done at the district level to help uplift and enable the broader work. And I just want to call out the team. I think the team has done an amazing job during an incredibly challenging time and has really accomplished a lot in the last couple of years. And longer term, we hope that other dollars can also be leveraged to support this important work. Thank you.
Thank you both, Bridget and Stacy. Just wanted to share a little bit more about what the initiative really is and what we're looking to achieve. And so here just are our outcome areas, and particularly talking about this framework, like what we hope to see differently in terms of how partners can engage with schools, how we can find that best alignment to be able to speak with our principals about the best fit type of partnerships to really support our students and the things that they're looking to achieve. And then being able to implement a framework where this alignment matches the outcomes that we're looking to achieve, and then being able to make sure that our school leaders really have the organizational capacity at their school level to really leverage these partnerships effectively and supporting our families and students through these activities. Ultimately, this has not been a small effort. We have really engaged district across multiple departments, and we have this cross-functional team of members that you see there on the left who have been able to work together to put forward not only the framework, but the model that we're looking to propose. And so as we've talked about, the district office infrastructure has been a gap area in place that we've actually supported now in this effort. So we have the ability for partners to engage not only with schools directly, but with district offices that kind of lead that content knowledge that they have with the engagement office at the center for helping to facilitate and operationalize how we work together. And so this is the model that we're putting forward, and what we hope to talk about later is just how folks can look to receive this information or experience the new partner experience as we go forward. And so Bridget here.
Yes, really quickly, we just want to show the breadth of community engagement that has been a part of this process. This work started 2 years ago, literally May of 2020. And so in that time, we've held 16 listening sessions with different district staff members. We've had conversations and quarterly partnership convenings that represent more than 70 partners, as well as 4 community-based partnership meetings with 30 partners who were a part of the visioning and goal setting for this work. So we've talked to community partners, we've talked to district staff, we've talked to school-based staff, all to inform the work that we're doing now.
Right, and the progress to date has been huge, particularly the thing that on the right where I'm really excited about is just this collaboration about our procurement webinar series. We now have on the website a 5-part series for the partners to be able to understand more about how to navigate the district in their working and wanting to do business with the district, but also in their wanting to just engage around the work of partnerships. And so series opportunities around ESSA in particular help our organizations, our local grassroots organizations even, be able to engage with us in a different way. And so really excited about what's to come. In terms of the next 12 to 18 months, wanting the board to understand more about what this initiative is hoping to do and what you can expect to see. And so really more of that resource mapping, landscaping, understanding more about the resources and also the opportunities that are available to our young people, and really documenting them in a way that not only our students and families get a chance to see, but our schools also get a chance to understand. And knowing the impact of those particular relationships. Really, again, how do we make sure that the right size fit model goes into the school or need that is best suited for it? And having the framework to be able to have a rubric and determine whether these relationships are effective in doing the work that they set out to do. We want to make sure that we're building the capacity of both our schools and our partners and having a way to work together more effectively. And so you'll be seeing more of that. And then just the idea that we have a sustainable plan to ensure that district office in particular, the department leads who are being identified, will be able to engage the work and keep things going. And so we just invite the broader community at our board and just letting you know that there is a place for people to plug in, and please directing them to that place. And that is our Partners in Education PI portal, where the page on the website now has a space for people to really engage and get a part of the community to be able to make sure they keep informed of what we're planning to do or what we're looking to offer. On the right-hand side are just some opportunities where capacity building will be made available. Our mentoring programs, there's a team around mentoring and caring adults that are offering opportunities to engage those types of partners, teaching and learning our tutoring partners looking to build up their capacity over the summer, and then continuing to have our quarterly partner convenings to keep partners engaged and informed about the work, but also how to engage more successfully with schools. And so we just invite the members of the public, our board, to really engage and get activated in our Partners in Education community. And thank you so much. Again, wanting to open up to time for any questions that you have, but truly excited about the opportunity to really have the work happening around partnerships with our district team.
Really want to thank the team for this presentation and invite any members of the board who have questions to ask them now, if you have any. Okay, well, thank you, team. Much appreciated. I've given my middle school teacher wait time. So I want to say thank you to everyone, even our partners who came this evening for the presentation. Thanks so much. And finally, I do want to remind everyone that we will conduct our 5th annual Day of Peace and Remembrance this Thursday at 9:30 a.m. here at the district office to honor the memories of the 12 city school students who have lost their lives this year to gun violence, this current school year to gun violence. And as Chairwoman McIntosh mentioned earlier, the irony of the timing of this day, given what an elementary school in Texas has also experienced with the killing by gunfire of up to 14 people, the overwhelming majority of whom are elementary school children. I think it is just a reminder of the importance of not becoming dulled and impervious to the violence that actually takes the lives of young people who really don't have the chance to maximize all of their gifts and talents. I want to invite everyone to join us in remembrance of those we have lost, and really to join your prayers with ours for their families and their peace. And I really also want to just thank Christy Lewis for continuing to do much of the organization work that it takes to really put forth the Peace and Remembrance Day every year. That has become a very important part of our community's mourning and pushing for better, frankly, for our young people. And so with that, I turn it back over to Chair Richardson for the remainder of this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Let's see here. I would like to now turn it over to Dewana Starrett to speak about the 2022 Maryland General Assembly session.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam CEO, members of the school board, Dewana Starrett, Director of Legislative and Government Affairs. Can you hear me okay? Before I start, I just want to give my personal thanks to Delegate McIntosh. Even prior to her becoming the chair of appropriations, I've been working with the school board as their legislative person for over 20 years, that she always constantly worked with us and helped us get legislation passed to better the students and children in Baltimore City. And so I just personally know that she would take a call at any moment of the day, any time of the night, to ensure that we were able to be successful in getting the services that our students need. So I just wanted to say that. So right now I will attempt to share my screen so I can start my presentation. Oops. Okay. It's coming. Here we go. It's coming up now. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So each legislative session, there are about 400 bills that are presented that deal with education in some manner, and this session was no different. One thing that was different was that this was an election year, so there were pieces of legislation that would ordinarily not move or be center of conversation, but they were given consideration. So there were some surprises this session, but overall, education did very well this session. It was also an interesting session in that we were coming out of the pandemic, and the session began totally virtual. But by mid-February, the Senate began all in-person hearing and meetings, and the House did a hybrid approach. So that made it for a very odd way to ensure that we got all the information that we needed, because you would have to sometimes be in a hearing and also listen to a computer for one chamber of the House. And so in this presentation, I will not go through the state budget because the board passed the budget at the last board meeting, but I will go through and focus on legislation that passed where the board may find it of interest, and board committees may want to track how staff approaches and responds to certain pieces of legislation, and also policies that the board may decide what the board would need to introduce and amend later on this year. So the major issues here were, we had the blueprint or Kerwin. Again, I'm going to talk about certain city-specific schools, city-specific legislation. Again, some CIP funding, just so that you understand what came out of the capital budget that was outside of the capital improvement program that we have yearly, and statewide implications. So the first is the blueprint alterations. This was the bill that implemented the Kerwin legislation. And as you know, the first year that the blueprint passed, the governor vetoed it. And the following year, the legislators had to come back in and override the veto. So that required that this year there were certain reports that were to be due soon that we had to modify implementation dates. So this legislation modified some of those report dates, like the time in which we need to provide the implementation plans to the Accountability and Implementation Board that was established by Kerwin. It also changed some major funding issues because some jurisdictions had large losses of enrollment. There was an issue about loss of state funding, and so they made it so that maintenance of effort was modified to allow that school districts could receive the greater of their maintenance of effort, which is what the per pupil amount would be, versus the local share, which is what local governments must provide in addition to the general foundation amounts, but they also had to provide additional funding for other specific areas in Kerwin. And so that allowed school districts to ensure that they would receive this increased funding despite the loss of enrollment. Some of the local bills, as we all know, we had the Baltimore City Board bill that provided for the student member to have full voting rights. They can vote on all matters before the board except for personnel and collective bargaining. It also requires that the school board work with the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City to develop a policy and plan for the vote of the next school board student member. This year may be a little odd because we passed this bill this session in the spring. The student member is supposed to take office in the summer, July, August, September timeframe when school begins. But since there's not a lot of time between the passage of the bill and the start of the next session, we may end up modifying something this year and then have a full-blown process in place next year. But I know that the board executive officer, the chief legal officers, and others have been working on deciding what the best way to maneuver this. The bill also allows for the task force to be comprised to study compensation for school board members. Right now, most school boards in the state receive some compensation. Baltimore City School Board members, despite the tireless work that they perform, receive no compensation. And this task force will look at possible compensation and where that funding can come from, as well as the possibility of increasing the student member by one. Again, I don't want to repeat what the CEO mentioned about the Maggie McIntosh School Arts Fund. This was a great program, a great grant program that provides the $250,000 to purchase art supplies or to expand art curriculum in Baltimore City schools. And this was a great tribute to a great person in Annapolis that really focuses on Baltimore City and a former art teacher. MTA, this bill, Senate Bill 862, would permanently allow students to travel to school, and kids that are in the Youth Works program travel to and from jobs free of charge from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. It becomes a permanent free ride. Previously, we'd have to get legislation passed every so many years to get the free transit passes for students, but now it becomes permanent. Another bill that passed, it didn't get a lot of attention, but it establishes the Baltimore City Young Readers Program. It comes out of the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. I'm not a fan of where it comes from, you know, the name of the place where it comes from, but the purpose of the program is to work with a nonprofit organization to mail free, high-quality books to students to allow them to get a greater appreciation for reading in Baltimore City. Another bill, a couple of bills we worked in collaboration with Baltimore City government. One is the House Bill 73, which is the Complete Streets and Safe Routes to School program. This authorizes the school system, authorizes the city of Baltimore to provide funding for the Safe Routes to School program. This allows them to use money from red light transportation, the red light cameras, the speed monitoring cameras to fund the Safe Routes to School. It also requires that they work in collaboration with the city school system on those safe routes to school. I forgot again that this is also something that Operations Committee would be interested in keeping it and monitoring. The other issue, which was very big and prominent for the mayor this year, was the Baltimore City Youth Hub. The Youth Hub centralizes information to identify those services that are most needed and used by youth in Baltimore City. And so it allows the city to determine which programs would be the most beneficial to be funded and would be able to provide an equitable access to programs that serve youth in the city of Baltimore. So as I mentioned earlier, I won't talk to a lot about funding because the board passed its capital and operating budgets, but I wanted to let you know that in addition to the capital improvement program, Baltimore City government will receive $75 million for school capital projects. Now it goes to the city, but there is the understanding that they must work with the school system and the school board on what those capital projects should be. And this is something that, again, that Delegate McIntosh really pushed for. I mean, for us to have this additional funding and all the additional capital dollars. City schools, again, for the Maggie McIntosh Arts program will get $5 million in capital dollars in 2024. The Healthy Facilities School Fund, Baltimore City receives 50% of this fund, and this fund is set out to help with HVAC, mold remediation, temperature control. As you see there, in 23, we'll get $35 million. In FY24, we should be able to receive $45 million for this fund. And the Built to Learn, as the CEO mentioned earlier, something else that Delegate McIntosh helped us help work through for additional capital projects for across the state. The governor put in his first down payment of the $2.2 billion for that program, and it was $480 million statewide. And just as a reminder, Baltimore City Schools is eligible to, out of the $2.2 billion, to receive $420 million when the program is complete. There were also other capital dollars for earmarks. Hamilton Elementary School, which is in the 45th district, got $100,000. Francis Scott Key in the 46th district got $30,000, and Liberty Village Project, looks at the Liberty Elementary Rec Center, they will receive an earmark of $100,000, and that came out of District 41. Each year, each district across the state is allocated a certain amount of money for earmarks for various projects, and these three are ones that were specific to Baltimore City Schools or related to Baltimore City Schools. So we also have some other general for school facility projects. House Bill 1290, this was something that implemented the recommendations of the work group that was designed to look at the school facilities funding, which was chaired by Delegate McIntosh during the interim. And this sort of, what they say, it has Kerwinized school construction projects, or that's the hope that it will Kerwinize. So it allows that those with low wealth jurisdictions will be able to receive additional state funding based on their concentration of poverty. So if the school is 80% or more of concentration of poverty, they will get an additional 10 percentage points. And in Baltimore City, we are currently funded around 93%. So they would basically get 100% of their school construction project funded. And it ratchets down by percentages like that. Senate Bill 124, this is to help with the Cleaner and Greener Maryland. It's a bill that would give grants to schools and school systems to help reduce and compost school waste. Another bill, which is a pedestrian safety plan bill. This requires local school boards that are seeking state funding to put in a pedestrian safe walk program. It's similar to our Safe Routes to School program. This is a lot of gearing towards counties, because some counties don't necessarily have sidewalks. For us, it's geared towards ensuring that there are other safe passages to school, even though this must be required in any new or major renovation. The safety plans do not need to be implemented, but they need to be provided to the IAC prior to approval. The Climate Solutions Bill. This was a very big bill for Senator Pinsky, Chair of Education, Health, Environmental Affairs. And this bill, the reason I included it was because it has several provisions related to school buses. it requires that beginning in fiscal 2025 that a school board is prohibited from entering into a new contract to purchase any school bus that is not net zero or use any school bus that is not net zero. And the only caveat is if the bus had been in service prior to July 1st, 2024, you're allowed to use that. Student health, mental health was also a very, very big issue this session, and there were several bills presented dealing with student health. One that passed was about attendance, which now makes it a lawful absent for a student to not attend due to mental health needs. And there really needs to be a policy developed so that we can ensure that the absences are lawful and that they are amended into what our current attendance policy is. We also have the Seizure Action Plan Brindley's Law, which again isn't something else that the board may need to enact a policy, because beginning in the 23-24 school year, we have to ensure that there are at least 2 personnel in every school that are trained in recognizing seizure disorders. I think the board would need to work with the CEO in deciding who those 2 people are, which positions they are. School safety, reportable offenses. There are several reportable offenses that when a student commits, if it's off school grounds, that they are reported to the local superintendent, or in our case, the CEO. And this bill was initially introduced to modify some of those reportable offenses, but it ended up becoming more of a special education bill, where if it's a student that may be receiving any sort of disciplinary action because of a reportable offense, that they would then need to ensure that their attorney, if they had an attorney, was present at all of the conferences related to that discipline action. It also allows a student that was removed from one of those reportable offenses to be returned back to the same school where the child left. And this is a big thing because reportable offenses are major crimes. They're like, they're burglaries, they're robberies, cruelty to animals, they're theft. It's the very major crimes that are reported. Personnel, this is like a nice bill where in 2024, the governor has to include enough funds in the budget to allow school boards to provide a $500 bonus to each non-certificated educator in their system. And virtual schools, again, as you know, that was a big issue in light of the pandemic. And the General Assembly felt that there needed to be more of a virtual school program that was similar in many jurisdictions. And so they introduced the Virtual Schools Revisions Program, which allows for school districts to allow virtual schools when there's inclement weather. It authorizes them to do that now. It also requires that there's certain mitigation and addressing effects of learning loss. And it just it just makes more of the recommendations and requirements for virtual schools to be similar across the state. Athletics, the Elijah Gorham Act. This is a bill that requires all middle and high school students or high schools to develop a venue-specific emergency action plan for heat-related exposures for students. This came out of that awful incident where the student was died after a heat stroke. And it also requires that there be AEDs within a reasonable distance from the field. Again, there may be a need for policies and operations committee to take a look at this particular bill. Also, the uniform modifications, the Modesty for Modesty, House Bill 515 and Senate Bill 951. This was an outgrowth of students that wanted to modify their uniform, some for religious reasons, some for just personal reasons. And the board may want to work with staff to ensure that whatever modifications are taken into place are appropriate and set some sort of standards. And this was just some other legislation of interest, not going into a lot of detail about it, but clearly special education, that were the lack of the ability to use restraints and seclusions, the need to ensure that all students of special education have the appropriate digital tools, especially with virtual learning. The Whistleblower Protection Act, this was specific to schools, to people that are whistleblowers, that they not be required to exhaust all administrative remedies prior to filing a civil suit. The only caveat is if they choose to file a civil suit, they would have to notify the superintendent. The Purple Star program, this is just a nice program to allow those schools that have a large military population of students, families, that they are recognized in some manner by school boards. And here's just some bills that fail that may be introduced next year. I put this slide in here last year, and of the 4 that I chose last year, 3 of the 4, they actually were introduced. So financial literacy curriculum, I mean, this is always introduced, it seems like the last 10 years, to mandate that financial literacy be a graduation requirement. That failed again this year. Carbon dioxide, the bronchodilator bills, they also failed, but I expected they would be introduced again last year. They were just a bit onerous for people to take up this session. And the student organized peaceful demonstrations, that's something that I believe that they felt that they didn't need to deal with this session, because each school district can develop its own criteria already. And so with that, Madam Chair, I have concluded my presentation and would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Dewana? Thank you very much. I had an opportunity to do some work with you in this session, and so I have to say, you know your stuff. I don't know how you keep it all in your head, but you did a great job this session, and so thank you. I do see a hand raised, Commissioner Bondima.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to also thank DeWanda, because I say this every year when you get into the legislature committee meeting, and all of the board members from all around the state of Maryland are presenting or listening to our director there present all of the bills. And unless you have had long-term history in Annapolis, sometimes you just don't know exactly where they're going with some of these bills. And sometimes when I'm sitting there, that we have to vote on whether we agree with the bill, whether we endorse the bill or whatever. And sometimes it's not clear to me if we at Baltimore City are going to be for the bill or not for the bill. And if DeWanda was not sitting beside me telling me, yes, we're already doing it, and we're doing, and she gives me really good explanation as to how that bill was developed, created, and it's an advantage because she's the only one at the table who's helping the director of the maid down there to give good information about dates and times and information. And I just want to say, I don't know how long I'll be on the board, but I have to tell you that you were wonders for me, and you really did help. And we were always there. We never missed a meeting, and we shared information before the meeting. And, you know, it was a great experience, and you know, and continue doing the wonderful things that you're doing in Annapolis, DeWanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that the CEO's Director of Legislative Policy, Melissa Broom, works with me in Annapolis, and she's also a wealth of information, and we're a great duo. So I just want to thank her as well.
They are a great duo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dewana.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments before we move on? Commissioner Griffin?
Just a comment. I just want to echo the thanks. I got to see and experience a lot of the work that Dewana does. And thank you for calling and corralling and asking and getting all the thoughts and opinions of all the members of the board. I know it is not easy to have to go through so many different opinions to figure out where we all stand and what the board actually thinks as a whole. And I just want to say thank you for that. I always did appreciate our dialogues that we have, and I look forward to continuing to do so in the next year.
Thank you.
Awesome. This is a love on Dewana moment. But yeah, you do amazing work. And so thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
all of your guidance. Every time we have to have a meeting, you are preparing us in such a great way. And I just really appreciate that as well. So thank you. I am going to review the consent agenda. Board colleagues, please let me know if you would like an item removed, and please state your question for staff. I am pulling items 8.01 gifts and donations, 8.03 Arts Everyday waiver request, 8.04 the Canton Community Association waiver request, 8.07 ADG Sustainability Policy second reader, so that our student commissioner can vote on them. I am also pulling 8.02 policy and regulatory revisions in response to MSDE model policy on supporting pregnant and parenting students first reader for presentation, and because there is a request to waive second reader and vote on the policy this evening. I'll review the other items on the list and let me know if you want me to pull something. 8.05 Baltimore Montessori Public Charter School operator waiver and cap requests. 8.06 City Neighbors High School operator waiver and cap requests. Okay, 8.08 2022 Comprehensive Educational Facility Master Plan. 8.09 Public School Administrators and Supervisors Association Tentative Agreement. 15.01 Allstate Contractor Inc. 15.02 Nichols Contracting Inc. 15.03 Picunis Construction Company Inc. 15.04 Autumn Contracting Inc. 15.05 School Health Corporation. 15.06 Quadient Inc. 15.07 Miscellaneous Plumbing Services. 15.08 Rough Roofers Inc. 15.09 The Driven Group LLC. 15.10 Enterprise Car Sales Emergency Procurement. And 15.11 American Bus Sales and Service Emergency Procurement. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Chair, this is Commissioner Sally. So for item 8.06, I will need to recuse myself for vote on that item.
Okay, so we'll pull for vote.
Thank you.
Okay. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Chair, I also just wanted for clarification, and this is for staff, maybe someone can answer. I'm curious to know if we're voting on the recommended action for 8.05.
That's a good question. Can someone answer that?
Yeah, but I think I need Christian's help just to make sure I'm giving you good advice. That's how I would prefer if you were voting on what staff is recommending. Is that sufficient? Or Christian, Josh?
Sorry, sorry, I was about to turn on my camera. So 805 and 806 are one presentation, but because there were two actions in the presentation, they were split up into 805 and 806, but it's one PowerPoint.
Right, Christian, but I think the question is, the staff recommendation for 8.05 is to not approve. And so if the board votes to accept that, are they agreeing with the recommendation or like?
Correct. The recommended action should be the CEO's recommendation. So you're agreeing with the CEO's recommendations. If the board approves 8.05 and 8.06, it's agreeing with the recommendations, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question, Commissioner McFadden.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Who's
I'm
that?
sorry, Commissioner Roberts. I actually have a question for 8.03. Can we pull that?
Okay. And what's your question?
My question, just with this being the inaugural year with elected school board members joining the board, during the candidacy, I just wanted to know, I'd be curious if there were any best practices for utilizing district buildings for campaigning purposes. This is just a point of clarification with this being an inaugural year, and that would essentially set a precedent.
Great question. Thank you. So I'm hoping the staff did hear that question, and we'll pull that not only for the student commissioner to be able to vote, but to also get the answer to that question. All right, so we're going to move into public comment. We have speakers from recognized groups, and they will have the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. We do have the BTU president, Diamond Tay Brown, representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. I hear an echo. Christian.
Oh, that's me. It's a video, so I'll just unmute my phone.
Okay, go ahead. Play the video.
My computer, excuse me.
Good evening, everyone. Sadly, many school staff members in our district are not well. So I want to take my time tonight to highlight some ways wellness can be taken more carefully into consideration and offer some recommendations to improve wellness in our district. District leadership seems to define wellness days as days that are directed by the principal or supervisor and can be used as days staff get to leave early to use the time as they choose, or the days can be used to have staff catch up on work. Staff want wellness days to be days that staff get to leave early and do what they want to do with the rest of their day. We do not want days that are used to catch up on work to be defined as or titled wellness days because staff do not see working as a form of wellness. Staff want to be well, so are requesting leave to take care of themselves, but in some instances are being denied leave due to staff shortages. If there are a lot of people out at one work site on the same day, it is understandable that a supervisor might deny leave due to staff shortages. However, staff should not be denied leave or held accountable for the workload because of systemic staff shortages that have existed for years. Continuous district-wide staff shortages are leading to staff being overworked because they are taking on responsibilities to fill gaps that vacancies are causing. I recommend that the district creates a plan to address the staff shortages and present the plan and progress to staff at every school board meeting starting in August. These presentations can be a way to show staff that district leadership is tirelessly working on addressing staff shortages. The plan should be sure to include ways the district will increase staff in the retirement office and at the dozens of schools that are understaffed. I encourage the district to consider sign-on and retention bonuses as an incentive for people to work for city schools. Retention bonuses are a way to honor people's work and incentivize staff members to stay. There are several ways the district can address staff shortages and improve staff wellness, including improving the services in the BCPSS certification office and expanding the amount of staff members that work in the certification office. Currently, there are 1 to 3 staff members working in the certification office. Based on how this office is operating, that does not seem like enough staff to meet the needs of staff seeking certification support. People need more hands-on support with submitting documents to the Teach portal and navigating the Teach portal. PSRP with degrees and eligibility for conditional certifications aren't getting the support necessary. Oftentimes, I have to call Jerome Jones, head of labor relations, to get additional certification support for staff. In order for staff seeking certification support to get the guidance they need, more full-time staff dedicated to certification issues solely is necessary. The aforementioned staffing plan should include the barriers and progress towards removing the barriers of staffing the certification office adequately. Obtaining or renewing a teaching certification in BCPSS is very stressful. People are having very challenging experiences when seeking support to get certified. The people helping to support certification requests are overwhelmed. People are losing certification or leaving the district because of lack of certification support. Another way to improve staff wellness is to make sure they receive proper pay for substituting. School staff are agreeing to substitute, which is taking on additional paid work. All BTU teacher chapter and PSRP chapter bargaining unit members are supposed to get paid for substituting in addition to their regular pay. But unfortunately, many members are substituting and aren't getting paid or aren't getting paid the correct substitute rate. Please make sure that updated substitute rates are redistributed to all staff, principals, supervisors, and payroll specialists so that staff don't have to go through unnecessary hardships and stressful situations to get paid for substituting. I look forward to seeing how the district takes these comments and recommendations into consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Sheila Billups representing the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. Ms. Billups, are you here? Thought I saw her earlier.
I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, first I would like to apologize for the last two meetings that you had me to present. Miscommunication, and I do apologize. Nice to see everyone tonight. I want to first thank Mr. Mike Benoit for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am the Vice Chair of Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. I also would like for you to know that I am also the Vice Chair for the state, equivalent to Baltimore City. So I've enjoyed working with that, still going on with the work of special educational services. I would like to let you know that during this very difficult time, CCAT has been continually offering services to both Special Education Director, Dr. Brooks, as well as to the parents and staff and anyone who needed some extra help or had some concerns centered around this trying to teach during this troublesome time. Also, we want to let you know this is our year. End of the year, we're going to be looking for new staff to join the executive committee. That meeting will be held the second Monday of June. All our meetings are held the second Monday of every month from September through June, unless otherwise acknowledged. You can also contact Mr. Mike Benoit through Baltimore City Schools or Ms. Lois Jones-Smith if you're interested in being part of the executive nominating committee. And we always look for new people to come and be a part. You don't have to have a child that has a special need in order to be a part. We welcome everyone, teachers, principals, paraprofessionals, anyone in the community that would like to help this work in special education. I do appreciate this time. If there's any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Ms. Billups. Next, we have Carl Perry, the president of the Public School Administrators and Supervisors Association.
Greetings, Madam Chair, Vice Chair McFadden, Commissioners,
Hello.
Dr. Santelises. I pray that you all have been well and are taking care of yourselves as we move towards the end of one of the most challenging years ever. I apologize, I'm not my typical jovial self with the tragic news that's taking place in Texas tonight. I had intended on a brief presentation of items needed by all possessed members. After 30 years in education, I can honestly say I've never seen society or schools as dangerous and nerve-wracking as they are now. I've learned over the years on any given day, at any time, and in any school, anything can happen. Dr. Santelises earlier mentioned the Peace and Remembrance Day and 12 individuals who we lost to gun violence. Actually, there were 13, and 3 of them were mine. Aside from the names that you may read or the brief bios that are presented to you at the board meetings, everyone has a face and a story. I remember the last day of one of my October victims. He walked across the hall with his bright, beautiful smile and came to me the same way he did his first year as a freshman. He was a junior. Smiled, shook my hand, greeted everybody. Only to learn at 11:30 that night he was killed at his home. Not for something he did. He was a wonderful young man, but because of Baltimore City. The fear of anything exists daily among school leaders, every single day. It's something that I've never endured, and I've lost children over my career, but I've never endured the fear and anxiety to the extent that I feel it now. You know, people have gone back and forth in regards to school safety. I commend Chief Davis and the leadership team for implementing safety checks. They're not the end-all be-all. We have a limited school police force. There have been some people who said school police, they criminalize or they bring a negative stigma to schools. One thing I can rest assured and say that when we have a school police officer in our building, we feel safer. I don't fear my children. I don't fear my children. I fear the streets of Baltimore City coming against my children. People no longer respect the sanctity of the schoolhouse. If they want to come and injure somebody or do some harm without a school police officer, there's more of a chance. I'm a big, strong man. I would do anything to stop someone at the door to provide safety to my children. But a school police officer would better protect everybody. We need more school police officers. We need them for our safety. You have no idea, none whatsoever, what could happen on any given day in any school. No idea. A lot of people who make decisions don't work in schools. Baltimore City is one of the most dangerous cities in the entire world, with the greatest children in the entire world. We need better protection for our children. We need better protection for our staff. We could put plans and actions into place, but remember, anything, anywhere, on any given day can happen at a school or on a school campus. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Principal Perry. Finally, we have Horatio Hall and Josiah Bass, representing the Associated Student Congress for Baltimore City. Horatio or Josiah, are you here?
Okay, so I need to turn that off so it doesn't. Good evening, and I'm not Josiah and I'm not Horatio, but we do have those beautiful children right here with us in the room here. We're in the conference room right upstairs. My name is Marion Denning. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I teach pre-K at Harlem Park Elementary Middle School, and I've served as a green leader there since 2015. Our 3rd through 8th grade green team members meet once a week, enjoying gardening, recycling, and learning how to take actions to conserve energy and combat climate change. The sustainability policy, which was set for a final vote tonight, I think that might have changed, is very important to many teachers and students in our communities. On behalf of Harlem Park Elementary Middle School and Principal Jackson, I'd like to thank you for all of the support that you've given our school and our green team. We do have a token of appreciation for our board and Dr. Santelises tonight. We brought these beautiful gifts. A token of our appreciation, a green gift for you, and we will bring them downstairs in a little bit. And on here, you have a QR code that has links to our Green Team website and our school website and all our social media. So thank you so much for helping us to be Harlem Park, the place to green. 2 of my Green Team members are here to speak tonight about their experiences on the team and the importance of the new sustainability plan. Please allow me to introduce Horatio Hall and Josiah Bass.
Hello, my name is Horatio Hall. I've served on the Hall Park Elementary Middle School Green Team for the past 4 years. I love the Green Team so much, and Ms. Denning, our coordinator, is so amazing. My participation has enlightened me about climate change. I've learned about global warming and the effects it has had on our oceans, our plants, and animals. Our team has successfully advocated for the Baltimore City ban on styrofoam and plastic bags, which are a major cause of litter and pollution in our city, and which are hurting our animals. I like it when our team plants vegetables and herbs because we're raising our own food. I've been told I have the biggest green thumb on the entire team. I also love helping the younger team members learn to plant, to weed, and to take care of our gardens. Have you seen our beautiful Harlem Park campus? I'll be a Green Team advocate for life. Thank you, Principal Jackson, for your confidence. Live and let live. Think green, go green. May the forest be with you.
Hello, my name is Josiah Bass. I am a 6th grader at Harlem Park Elementary and Middle School. This is my 2nd year on our school's green team. Our team does some amazing things. We keep our school grounds clean and tend to our vegetable gardens. We even invite homework classes out to participate in other gardening activities throughout the school year. We recently went to Masonville Cove Nature Center to learn about birds and to bird watch with our own binoculars. This year, we made our own reusable grocery bags to support Baltimore City's plastic ban use, thanks to Ms. Denning. As a Green Team member, my impact had exceeded my expectations. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak during our Earth Day Day of Service event in front of Mayor Brandon Scott, the Chief of the Fire Department, executive leaders from the Department of Public Works, Commissioner Bondema, Commissioner Williams, and over 150 Harlem Park community members. During our Days of Service event, we honored the fallen firefighters who recently died in our school's neighborhood. We planted a tree in remembrance of their service to our community. As a result, Firefighter McMaster, the only surviving firefighter from that tragedy, is now honorary member of our team. He has come out to help us in the pollinator garden and with tree planting. It has been an awesome year at the park. And finally, thank you to Dr. Santelises and the school board members for ensuring that we are given the opportunity to participate in life-changing experiences like we do at our school. And thank you, Principal Jackson, and remember, Harlem Park cares, Josiah Bass.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see a commissioner. One of our commissioners has their hands up and want to ask a question. Commissioner Bondema.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say, you remember I told you that I would be happy to come down and start a wetland or garden down right around that beautiful tree that you planted. So I'm still waiting for that call.
Awesome. What kind of plants do you all have for us? What's the name of that plant? Can you hear me? Oh, it's like a bad connection, I think. Can everybody else hear me?
We will certainly be calling you, Commissioner. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I think it's a really bad delay up there, so we're going to move forward. I want to turn it over to our board executive for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our first public comment is from Tori Grace. Are you available?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Tori Grace, and I work at Youth as Resources. I am staff manager and secretary there. I want to start by thanking ASCBC for like coordinating with us and supporting our work. Okay, I'll tell y'all a little bit about what we are, but we are a youth-led grant-making organization in Baltimore City. Aside from that, we are community organizers and activists. We've been working around school police accountability since 2015, which led to our work with the Police Free Schools Coalition. And with that, we started advocating with some of our peers, Baltimore City Public School students, youth activists, and adult advocates, a few other organizations and stuff like that. But we have been working around like Go Guardian and getting mental health, like 24-hour mental health specialists to be first responders to mental health crisis when schools are closed. So pretty much we've created a petition, and as well as a position paper for people to sign on to, organizations to sign on to, and we just wanted to get some support from you all. And signing our petition, we have a petition on change.org, and you can just type in better mental health resources for BCPSS students, or you can just type my name in, Tori Grace. And you will find it if you do support it. We just want more mental health resources and more mental health specialists and like just mental health workers. It doesn't have to be like a professional, just somebody who works in that field, someone more qualified than school police to address these issues when school is over with. And we want to do this because we are a youth-led organization, but we work with other youth. We draw out what they need, so we want to have youth voice implemented here, like everywhere. You know, decreasing the school to prison pipeline, as well as just like the larger goal is just to have the mental health specialists there. We are a part of Police Free Schools, so yeah, that speaks for itself. And I want to say lastly that we will be contacting school board commissioners, just giving you guys a heads up to talk about our work, what we're doing, how seeing how you can help us move forward with that. And that is all. I want to thank everybody that supported us. And another shout out to ASCBC, since they're here right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Terrace King II. I see you as a, okay, I see you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greetings to Madam President, Commissioners, and CEO. I'm Terrace King II, Head of Schools at Temple X Schools and Educational Coordinator at Act Now, Baltimore. As a second-generation preacher's kid in this city, I believe the source of community change comes from the faith leaders in this city. And I wanted to tell a really brief 1-minute story about COVID, conflict, and collaboration. I came back to the city from Shanghai and actually met the superintendent a week or so ago, a year ago. And we went on a journey to bring together faith institutions from across the city on one effort, and that was to collaborate and support city schools. In the beginning of this process during COVID, there was a lot of conflict, a lot of media we were doing, speaking out against what was happening in city schools. And as an educational coordinator, I started to realize that there was a lot of banter here through Project Baltimore and different media outlets about what the problem was. But the question really during this experience was, what are we going to do about it? And I come here tonight to just talk about the amazing year that we've had in collaboration with the superintendent's team, specifically Tina Hike-Hubbard, Monica Sims, as well as Pastor Sutton. We have been meeting with them once a month to cultivate what they expressed earlier around community partnership. And we are excited to continue this work and wanted to share as a source of just bringing together the untapped resource in this city. Again, you'll be seeing my face a lot more often, and we are excited to expand these programs as I come back to the city from years abroad in Shanghai. I have been truly disheartened by the status of the city. However, my faith in God and my faith in this system tells me that in this moment, if we bring more faith leaders to the table to integrate into what amazing work you're doing here, we can change parts of the system in the city. Thank you all for your trust. To the team and to Dr. Santelises, thank you for your collaboration, and to the board and to everyone on the line who works for city schools. Thank you for your dedication to our children in this amazing city. God bless everyone.
Thank you very much. Finally, we have Jocelyn Providence. Jocelyn, are you available?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Jocelyn Providence, and I'm a teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. I said this 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. We are still in a pandemic, and we are still in an uptick. Like I also said 2 weeks ago to the board, we are in a rise in cases at a rate that has not been seen in the past 3 months. The COVID dashboard currently reads that there were 1,061 positive cases in the past 10 days. And as the Baltimore City School District leadership continues to remind us, this is only the positive cases that occurred in school buildings. So this does not include the many students and staff that have tested positive from a rapid test on their own. Many people, like myself, have been asking for months what data will be used to make the decision to determine whether or not mask mandates will be re-implemented to school buildings. That question still was never answered. And now here we are, still in a pandemic, with multiple schools having outbreaks, still having outbreaks. And one of the most preventative measures that is strongly recommended by Baltimore City Health Commissioner Dr. DeRosa herself is not being implemented. On May 10th, Baltimore City Public Schools stated that they were going to give an update on messaging to staff and schools regarding the updated recommendation from Dr. DeRosa. That has not happened still. I don't even know what else to say about that. We need to protect our children in every way possible. We need to protect school staff in every way possible. And we are simply not doing that by choice. Next, earlier, Ms. DeWanna Sturrett, I apologize if I misspoke your name, spoke about local bills important for Baltimore City Public Schools to be aware of. Senate Bill 157 and House Bill 433, Baltimore City School Board, School Commissioner, student members was mentioned. I heard also that the district state that they were working to make a modified plan with ASCBC. Because voting would be accessible for all students, all middle and high school students, it seems important to include current SGA advisors with the planning for this. Please incorporate us into this important planning process to increase engagement with our students in the school board commissioner process and in the policy process. Finally, policy ADG's sustainability policy is going to be discussed tonight and voted on for the second reader. And it is so important, like our awesome students said earlier, more than ever. If a zero waste initiative and goal is not included in this policy, that will be a failure. There are multiple initiatives happening in Baltimore City, like the South Baltimore Community Land Trust, that is calling on local institutions.
Jocelyn, if you can wrap up your last, your thoughts.
This is my last 2 sentences. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, sorry. There are multiple initiatives happening in Baltimore City, like the South Baltimore Community Land Trust, that is calling on local institutions like Baltimore City Public Schools to step up. Baltimore City Public Schools has had their own successful pilot compost program that needs to be re-implemented, and we need to have more support for programs like this, educational programs that work to improve our schools and our community. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you all stay safe and have a blessed evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was the last sign up for public comment.
Thank you, Christian. Before I move to the pulled items, I want to know, based on public comment, are there any additional items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda? And I don't hear or see any hands up.
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
I need to pull. Well, never mind.
Okay, you sure?
No, I do need to pull 8.03 for a vote.
Okay.
Know that I know that Commissioner Roberts did ask for, some clarification, but I do need to pull that for a vote.
Okay. So I also want to give our student commissioner, Ezra, an opportunity to ask any questions or share any comments at this time. Ezra, do you have anything to share?
I just wanted to speak in regard to the petition. I recently spoke with ACBC and the Voters Coalition yesterday, speaking about my support about financial distribution and making sure we hire more clinicians and offer more care to our students. And I wanted to make it clear that I'm supportive of that petition. I'm speaking with more constituents to talk about upholding it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. So let's start with 8.03, Arts Every Day. The question was about best practices for utilizing district buildings, as this would be a precedent set. So is there anyone on staff who can respond to that question for Commissioner Roberts?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's Allison Perkins Cohen. So this is, so the current policy about use of facilities prohibits the use of facilities for this type of event. It can be waived, and that provision has been waived in the past. So this would not be the first time that we've waived it. Events like this, meet and greets, are not allowable under the current policy. However, we are looking at the policy in the Commissioner Roberts' question about, given the elected school board, is this something that we should be waiving? Again, we've waived it before for similar events when there's been all candidates have had a chance to be there. We have done it before. I think we are going to look at this policy and we'll recommend revisions to the policy if we think it's appropriate, given kind of the changing nature with the elected school board.
And I just want to say for the record, it is very specific to school board candidates with a potential conflict of interest. And so my question isn't about the event or any particular candidate or anything of that sort. It's solely around precedent setting with candidates for the school board.
With candidates for school board specifically?
Yes.
So this would be the first time we've waived it for candidates for school board, of course, because this is the first time we've had that situation.
Right. So I think my question, Allison, is you said you would look into it. Should we wait for this one and get more guidance before voting on this?
I think what's different about this is that, and I think where we would, when we're looking at it, what we would look for is events where all candidates have an opportunity to participate, which this is. Right. This is a meet and greet for all candidates. And I think that's what again, we haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I think the area that we would be looking at is, are there opportunities that is more about civic engagement and allowing all candidates an equal opportunity to have access to meeting with members of the public, as opposed to using a building for a background in a political ad. I think that's the difference we're trying to look at to see whether we should consider revisions. And this is in the meet and greet nature. All candidates, as I understand it, are expected to be there, or invited to be there, have been given the opportunity to be there.
And we know that we've seen those invitations, or like we've been told by this group that every candidate has been invited. Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's what the flyer says, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Roberts, does that answer your question? You have any more questions or any other commissioners?
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. So I want to vote on this one item because it also needs to be pulled for vote. So is there a motion to approve item 8.03?
So moved, Griffin.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. Is there a second?
Second, Brooks.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. All in favor, Commissioner Bondima? Commissioner Brooks?
Yes, Bandima.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll do it this way. Okay, yes, Commissioner Bondima. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner Horowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden? Oh, yeah, Commissioner McFadden?
I'm abstaining.
Right. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
No.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
And I am in favor. This motion passes with 8 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention. We'll go to item 8.06, City Neighbors High School operator waiver. That was pulled by Commissioner Sally for vote. Is there a motion to approve item 8.06?
So moved, Chenya.
Thank you, Commissioner Chin.
I'm sorry, that was the item that Commissioner Sally pulled. I just want to make sure I got the right item.
Yes, 8.06. He pulled
Was that
for.
I had 15.06. I just want to make sure I'm not incorrect.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get it wrong, Commissioner Sally?
8.06.
8 point. Okay, thank you. I got that. I missed that one. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. And who moved that one? I'm sorry.
Chenya moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Chenya. Is there a second?
Second, Griffin.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. All in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
This is one for the student commissioner. I'm seeking clarity.
8.06. No, it is not.
Okay, no, it is not. All right, Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
I abstain.
Thank you. And I approve. So I'm in favor. I'm sorry. So this motion passes, someone help me, with 8 in favor and 1 abstention?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Now I want to go to the other items that our student commissioner can vote on. Items 8.01, 8.04, and 8.07. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved, Bandima.
Thank you, Commissioner Bondima. Is there a second?
Second, Sally.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally. All in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner Horowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
And I am in favor. Those motions that motion passes with all in favor. And I want to vote on the rest of the remaining items on the consent agenda. And these are without the student commissioner vote. Is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items except item 8.02?
So moved, Reed.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second?
Second, Brooks.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. All in favor? Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
and I am in favor. The motion passes, all in favor. 8.02, policy and regulatory revisions in response to MSDE model policy on supporting pregnant and parenting students, first reader. We have a presentation, right, Josh? A short presentation there?
Yes.
And then there'll be a request for waiving a second reader. So I'll let you take it over, Josh.
Thanks. I'm Josh Sivin. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here, and this is work to align with state law. And I wanted to introduce Rebecca Burney, Assistant Counsel in my office, as well as Sarah Warren, Executive Director for Wholeness, and Dr. Louise Fink, who will be presenting our brief presentation now. And there'll be a proposal for a waiver of second reader on this at the end, so stay tuned for that. Thanks.
You're still muted.
Thank you. You would think I would learn after after all of these presentations. So the reason we're here today is because MSDE created a model policy to support pregnant and parenting students. A new state law took effect on July 1st, 2021. But of course, MSDE took some time to provide their model policy. However, they are asking that each local school system update their own policies to reflect the model policy and changes to the legislation by June 1st of 2022. So if we look at the calendar, that is quickly approaching. This model policy was based on research, best practices, guidance from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, as well as a number of other advocacy organizations. Each local school system must provide evidence of the model policy training, as well as have the policy published and provide documentation to MSDE by June 1st of 2022. So these changes that we are recommending are aligned with all of the board's strategic priorities, particularly 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. Most of these changes are minor technical tweaks to policies that we already have, and they really just emphasize our commitment to students in city schools, the actions that the board's already taken to support students who are pregnant or parenting, as well as make sure that we are acting in a way to provide equity and make sure that we are providing an inclusive environment to all students. Due to the state law and MSDE's deadline of June 1st, 2022, we are asking that the board waive second reader today. We're asking that you pass a motion based on policy BGB to waive second reader. And really the reason we're doing this is because many of the changes that we are making are minor technical changes to board policies ACH, JEA, and JBB. These changes are required by state law, and what you'll notice throughout this presentation is really what we're doing is streamlining policies that we already have in place. We haven't created many new policies or guidance. We're really just taking parts of ACH, JEA, and JBB and bringing them together in a new regulation to just streamline it for people to see. And so with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Fink, to talk about some of the work that city schools are already doing to support pregnant and parenting students.
Always muted. Good evening.
We're building on a foundation that already exists. City schools currently provide services for pregnant and parenting teens through the home and hospital and/or school programs. Students are referred to home teaching through a medical application completed by their physician for pregnancy, postpartum, and are assigned to a teacher as well as a school social worker who helps them and does several visits with them, helps them with resources, makes appointments, referrals, and provides supports while the student is on home teaching. And creates a plan to transition back to school. Services are provided for the last 2 weeks of pregnancy, and then what?
I'm sorry, we're just getting a little back kind of garbled on your voice. So I don't know if there's something technologically we can do, but it's just hard to understand you because it's a bit garbled coming through the technology. So I'm not sure.
I will try to speak slowly, and if not, I will try to make a few smaller statements. Was that better?
You know, the other thing you could do is actually go out and come back in to see if that might be easier.
Let me try.
If that might clear it up a bit.
Okay, and in the interest of time, I'm happy to continue with the presentation, and then we can come back at the end and talk about some of the things that City Schools is doing so that we can hopefully fix those technological issues. So let me, I'll just move forward and then we can move backward at the end.
Rebecca, I'm happy to just pick up and try to keep going until Dr. Fink comes back. I think she may have an issue with her microphone, so.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay. So Dr. Fink was essentially just providing an overview of how things work now. So we receive these referrals with a medical application. It comes from the physician. We provide the services and link the student to a social worker. These services currently last for at least 2 weeks of the pregnancy, and then they resume again after delivery for 6 weeks. So we don't just kick a student out. If they are still needing services after that time, we will make arrangements to continue providing support. And then we also just want to highlight the fact that we have some schools that are already doing really great work to support their students who are pregnant and parenting. We also work very closely with a number of different partners to support our students, and you can see some of those listed here.
Okay, and let me see if we're a little bit clearer here now. Are we clear? We had 47 referrals as of March 30th, 2022. 100% of our pregnant and parenting 12th grade students on track to graduate this year, and 15 out of the 18 students returned to school after being on home teaching as of March 1st, 2022. Next slide, please. We are very proud of our success stories. Our 12th grade student who received 504 students, and she's on track to graduate and has excellent participation with the home teaching program. We have a 12th grade student who just had her second child and lives with her on her own, and she comes to her mother's house for teaching, and she is on track to graduate, and we're very pleased to be working with her. Next slide, please. And one of our success stories that we're very proud of, we have a senior student who was pregnant and was referred to home and hospital in the fall of 2022. She delivered her baby, returned to school, received a full scholarship to college and a half scholarship to another college, and will be resuming her education in the fall as a postgraduate. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So when we were looking at the model policy from MSDE, there were a number of objectives that we kept in mind as we tackled how to best address their recommendations. So the board has actually done a great job of supporting pregnant and parenting students. We've passed a lot of policies and regulations, making sure that pregnant and parenting students are supported across a range of issues, including attendance, missed work, and lactation space. So this new regulation that we've created really just provides a roadmap of how to find relevant policies and information and brings together in one place procedures to support pregnant and parenting students and promote their well-being. So if a student is pregnant, or if a parent of a pregnant or parenting student wants more information, isn't sure where to look in our policies, they can go to this new regulation and find the cross-references to policies that currently exist. This new regulation will be Regulation JBB-RB, and we've intentionally embedded it within board policy JBB because of the commitment to gender equity and how important this is when we think about sex discrimination. So as I mentioned, this regulation will streamline and enhance protocols that are already in place. One way that we will do this is by ensuring protocols are accessible to students and their families, clarifying responsibilities and promoting collaboration among offices and schools. It makes it very clear what's the responsibility of the school, as well as the staff that are supporting the student. And it also will provide additional training to staff to make sure that they know how to support pregnant and parenting students. As a quick overview of some of the existing policies and regulations that already exist in regards to pregnant and parenting students, JEA is our compulsory attendance policy, and that policy already establishes that absences for pregnant and parenting students are considered lawful absences. JEA-RA has specific guidelines regarding attendance for pregnant and parenting students, including a minimum of 10 days excused absence after the birth of a child. ACH, again, highlights City Schools' commitment to supporting all nursing parents, including nursing students, by making sure that there's a dedicated lactation space and reasonable accommodations. ACH-RA provides guidelines for nursing parents, including nursing students as well, and makes sure that they have the ability to make up any missed assignments. Other policies that we already have in place that address the needs of pregnant and parenting students are JBA and JBA-RA. And these policies really make sure that we're not discriminating against students who are pregnant or parenting based on their perceived status or actual status. JBB, again, prohibits sex-based discrimination or harassment based on a student's perceived or actual pregnant or parenting status. JBB-RA, this is our regulation for investigating complaints of sex-based discrimination, and is again also is discrimination against students who are pregnant or parenting. We also have JICK and JICK-RA, which establishes protocols to address bullying, including bullying of students who may be pregnant or parenting. Our second objective was to make sure that we were cross-referencing all of these policies that I've just mentioned. So we already have a number of supports in place for pregnant and parenting students, and we wanted to make sure that our new regulation wasn't reinventing the wheel, but rather showing people where to look and providing that roadmap. So one of the required elements of MSDE was that we make sure our policies prohibit gender discrimination of any type in educational programs. This is already partially addressed in JBB, but we've just cross-referenced and expanded this in the new regulation. Another requirement of MSDE was that pregnant and parenting students be allowed to participate in all aspects of their educational program. Again, this is partially addressed in policy JEA, and we just cross-referenced and expanded. If you look at the new regulation, we really just incorporated a lot of the guidance from the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, just to make it clear what rights students who are pregnant and parenting have. Another thing that was required of MSD's model policy is inclusion of the definition of parenting student. They actually provided that language, and so we made sure to address it in policies ACH and JBB by including that definition as one of the technical revisions. Other cross-references, so MSDE's policy required that we make it clear schools do not need to create a new space. And so again, that was partially addressed in ACH, but we just cross-referenced and expanded. Similarly, for policies about attendance, makeup work, and lactation, we cross-referenced and expanded. And again, bullying was also addressed by JICK, so we just cross-referenced those. As you'll see in our handouts, we went into more detail about all the specific technical changes we made. So again, this just provides a quick overview of policy language that was added to address these requirements of MSD. Objective 4. So these are the technical edits. And again, they're very, very minor revisions. This provides just a quick summary of the revisions. As you'll see, again, a lot of it is just streamlining and making sure that we are including the definitions required by MSDE and that we're making sure our policies work together and make sense, that we're cross-referencing the new regulation. And again, we have a summary of all of these technical changes, but they are rather minor. And finally, in terms of our engagement, we did reach out to a number of external stakeholders asking for written feedback. We did not receive much written feedback. The feedback we did receive, there were no suggested changes. So with that, I guess we'll open it up to questions from the commissioners.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? Okay, I don't see any hands, and right, I don't see any hands. So thank you to the staff for the presentation. So I have a script to read. Board Policy BGB provides that policy changes must be presented at the public board meeting for a first reader, followed by a vote to adopt, reject, adopt with amendments, or refer the draft policy for further study at second reader. The CEO, through her authorized designee, has requested that the board waive second reader for the technical changes to board policies ACH, JEA, and JBB, and proceed to a final vote on the proposed revisions during this meeting. The proposed revisions are required by Maryland state law and align with the model policy that the Maryland State Department of Education developed to implement state law. The proposed revisions largely involve bringing together, cross-referencing, and expanding on existing board policies and administrative regulations. The request to waive second reader is due to the Maryland State Department of Education's request that the changes be made by June 1, 2022, and waiting until second reader for a vote on the proposed policy revisions would prevent the board from meeting MSDE's June 1st deadline. At this time, and for the above reasons, I would like to entertain a motion to waive second reader pursuant to Board Policy BGB, which allows the board to alter and or suspend our procedures based upon a majority vote. Is there a motion?
I move that the board policy BGB is waived to permit the board, upon majority vote, to amend policies ACH, JEA, and JBB without going through the second reader process, and that the board approve the amendments to policy ACH, JEA, and JBB to incorporate the technical revisions that are required by Maryland state law.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second?
Second, Bandima.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandima. All in favor? Commissioner Bandima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chinya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz? Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
And I am in favor. Any opposed? Any abstained? Is Commissioner Horwitz in the room? Because I can't see.
Commissioner Horwitz was virtual, but I don't see them online at the moment.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then,
I'm online.
Oh, okay. So I'm asking for your vote in this motion. Were you?
Oh, I apologize.
So-
My volume went out for a bit.
Oh, okay. So are you in favor, do you oppose, or are you abstained from this?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. This motion passes with 10 in favor. We will now hear an information item on the school year 22-23 operator renewal process.
Good evening. I'm Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives. I'm joined by Chief Jones.
Good evening. Hopefully you can see and hear me. Teresa Jones, Chief Achievement and Accountability Officer.
And Trevor.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Roberts. I'm a specialist in the Office of New Initiatives.
So we're here tonight to officially present the process that we're going to be using for the upcoming operator renewal. This aligns most closely to priority 1 of the board's priorities, that city schools will ensure effective, relevant, and rigorous instruction. Is designed to engage and prepare students to be independent, creative, and compassionate leaders, as well as board priority 6, that city schools increase the number of educational opportunity, educational programming of all types and levels throughout the city, while ensuring that all schools, including charters, guarantee a high quality educational experience. So every year since we adopted the framework that we've been using since school year 12-13, we conduct a debriefing. What we try to balance when we do that debriefing process with operators and with our charter and operator-led schools advisory board, the board, and other stakeholders is to balance the goal of making necessary changes, cognizant of a changing context, and that feedback, particularly from operators who went through renewal, while still maintaining predictability for schools and how they would be reviewed in an upcoming renewal process. And so we've continued to have this sort of iterative review process as part of and as core of how we do renewal after we conclude a renewal process. We have 11 schools who are scheduled to go through renewal in school year 22-23. And just to remind everybody, the starting place that governs our process is, of course, our board policy IHBJ for charter schools. It holds that the process considers 3 key areas: student achievement and academic success, which is where we consider things such as the state assessments, college and career readiness, graduation, effective programming for all racial ethnic groups, and fidelity charter. And we consider climate, which includes suspensions, family surveys, cohort retention, highly effective instruction, talented people, and vision engagement, which comes from our school effectiveness reviews, chronic absence, and effective programming for students with disabilities, as well as a look at the financial management and governance of our operators, which includes a review of the audit and financial content of the operations of these schools, strategic leadership and governance from the SER, as well as operator capacity, which considers the extent to which operators are effectively operating their schools. This process is a quantitative and a qualitative process because we recognize that the work of schools is complex. And so we have created a process that considers multiple data points to really understand what's happening within a school. And not effective in any of these 3 overall categories can be grounds for a non-renewal recommendation. For this year, as we have done in the past, we are moving an element out of the climate section into the academic success session for school year 22-23. We'll talk more about that further in the presentation. This is a list of schools who are up for renewal this year. And this shows the process that we've engaged with to get feedback from our stakeholders before finalizing the process that we're presenting tonight on May 24th.
And just to set the stage, we presented 2 different options for the renewal process to stakeholders during the debriefing. The first option was to conduct a full renewal review. This would include the option to give schools the full slate of contract renewal terms. So that's 3 years, 5 years, and up to 8 years for schools that qualify for the extended 8-year renewal. This option would consider the full renewal rubric with trend and state assessments being the only measure in the metric that is not available this year. And as part of the debriefing, we gave stakeholders the option to give input on whether they would like to see either the 5 essentials survey, which we'll talk about later in the presentation, or the highly effective instruction metric to move that to the academic section from climate. And as Angela mentioned, in years where, like this one, where we have more limited state assessment data, we have moved climate metrics into the academic section to give a little more of a full view of what is going on at schools as part of the renewal review. And so that was one of the options that was offered to stakeholders during the debriefing process. The other option that we discussed was conducting an abbreviated review, which would have been similar to what was used during this year's renewal process, where we looked at indicators of compliance with critical state and federal mandates and schools' financial health. One critical difference that we offer this year is that as part of the abbreviated review, in addition to those compliance metrics, we would also be looking at the overall academic section of the rubric and having that be one of the factors that is considered in the renewal recommendations that schools would receive. As part of this approach, schools would only be eligible for a 3-year renewal or a non-renewal. And in order to give as broad a view as possible in academics, we would look at both highly effective instruction and the 5 essentials survey in the academic section of the rubric. And the climate metrics of the rubric would be considered as formative and giving feedback to schools and additional information to the board and the public, but it would not directly affect the renewal recommendation. And finally, as part of this approach, there would be a pathway for schools that were eligible for the extended 8-year renewal to preserve that option in further rounds of renewal. In terms of the feedback we got from stakeholders on these 2 options, there was a clear preference among most stakeholders to conduct a full renewal process. And I think some of the things that led stakeholders to prefer this option is that almost all the data in the rubric is available this year. So it makes sense with the full range of data available to go with the full renewal rubric. It would also allow schools to earn renewals that are longer than 3 years. And especially considering that several of the schools that are going through renewal in the upcoming year will be eligible for that 8-year extended term I think a lot of the operators, especially who were eligible for those terms, would like to have the opportunity to earn an 8-year renewal. And we also got feedback from operators who went through the abbreviated process this year that that abbreviated process did not significantly reduce the work that it goes along with the renewal process. So there's a lot of work that schools do when they're going through renewal. And the experience of operators was that the abbreviated process did not significantly reduce that amount of work. There were some stakeholders who did prefer the abbreviated process so that they could focus on those critical factors of academics and critical compliance and financial health metrics. But overall, we did see definite leaning towards the full renewal process. So based on the feedback that we got and our internal debates, we will be conducting a full renewal process for 2022-23. As I mentioned, this does allow for consideration for all renewal terms, including the longer terms, so that will reduce the burden on those schools who do earn longer terms, so they won't have to go through the renewal process so soon afterwards. The full renewal process will also allow us to look at factors such as school climate that would not be fully reviewed under the abbreviated process. And we thought that it was very important for us to reestablish continuity with the renewal process that has been used since 2012 in order to maintain that predictability in renewal that schools rely on. One important note with this process, and also the same would be true under the abbreviated process, is that the renewal timeline will need to be extended into February to allow for consideration of the 2021-22 MCAP results. So the 2021-22 spring administration will be the first administration for stakes of the new MCAP exam. And we are expecting those results to be released in December of this year. So because some of that information is coming in late, we will be extending the final vote on renewal to February. So here we are looking at the full timeline of the renewal process, starting in June with the orientation for schools going through renewal. It's important to note that schools will be receiving a preliminary renewal recommendation in November. And then when the MCAP results are released in December, schools will have an opportunity to look at those results, to submit additional information and their own analysis of those results for consideration by staff and the CEO. And they will be receiving a finalized recommendation following the release of those results, with the board voting on the recommendation in February. We're going to look at the individual rubric metrics that will be used in renewal this year, starting with the academic success portion of the rubric. This is a quick rundown of each of the metrics that are in the rubric. The main takeaway from this is that all metrics will be available except for that trend performance on state assessments. Again, because it is the first year of the MCAP assessment, trend performance will not be available, but all other metrics in the academic section will be there.
Thank you, Trevor. So to do a quick review of how we're utilizing state assessments in the academic success component of the rubric, we're going to talk about the 3 different ways that we typically look at that data. So the first way is in terms of absolute performance. In recognition of the fact that we oftentimes see in our research that there is a correlation between student poverty and their absolute performance on standardized assessments, we've adopted a methodology that actually adjusts for that, that still allows us to take a look at absolute performance as a way to understand student outcomes. So one of the ways we do that is by taking a look at what we consider to be levels of economic disadvantage. And with this MCAP assessment data, we would be in a position to utilize the data in that way to include absolute performance as a metric in this upcoming year. As Trevor mentioned, because we are anticipating a little bit of a later return than we would typically see, we have a timeline that would allow for us to get that data and then provide schools with an opportunity to then share their sort of insights or reflections upon that data once the data are available, which will likely be somewhere around the December 2022 time period. We also wanted to make note of the fact that with the return of the MCAP this year, it does coincide with the reinstatement of the state's accountability system, which will be utilizing those 2021-22 MCAP results. The second way that we typically look at state assessments is by trend, and that requires us to take a look over time. Again, because there was a disruption due to the pandemic, we would not have the ability to calculate a trend measure by mean scale score comparison. Therefore, we will not have trend data for this particular cycle. Next slide, please. The third way that we typically take a look at assessment data is by growth. And so one of the things that we are in a position to do this year is we have the ability to utilize the student growth percentile, which is the main growth metric that we have used in the most recent renewal process where we actually had the ability to use assessment data. And so you'll see reference here to PARC because that was the precursor to MCAP. So as far as our process is concerned, because we typically look at this data over multiple years, what we would do is instead of foregoing the inclusion of student growth data, is that for the elementary and middle grades, we would be in a position to use those prior years student growth percentiles, which would come from the 17-18 and 18-19 PARC performances. The other thing that we would be able to do, as we've typically done, is to provide alternative assessments as an option for those schools that request consideration. The key point here is that we would ask that schools notify the Office of New Initiatives by June 15th if they would like to exercise that option. And then we would actually go through a process of review to make sure that it meets the standards that we have that would allow it to be used for this process. So we did want to make sure that that was clear, that by electing to use an alternate assessment, that actually does require district approval. With that, I will turn it over to Angela to discuss the 5 Essentials survey.
And so as Trevor shared, and I stated earlier, we're going to be using the 5 Essentials survey this year. This is something we've used for several years in the beginning when we first used and we first implemented this renewal process. We're bringing it back because it's predictive of school success. And so in a year where we have some limited state assessment data, having this predictive tool at our disposal, I think helps to get a more round picture for schools. It's predictive of schools that do well in 3 of the 5 key areas that are looked at in the 5 Essentials, where leadership is one of those. They lead to improved outcomes for students. Oh, what just happened? Okay. In attendance, grad rates, test scores, freshmen on track. Okay. Score. So sorry, it looks like we something just adjusted. So it's very predictive. So here you can see the domains that are included in the 5 Essentials. So it's effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, supportive environments, and ambitious instruction. Research shows that when schools are organized around these things, it leads to success. The 5 Essentials is highly predictive, and schools that are, again, strong in 3 of the 5 Essentials, where effective leaders is 1, are 10 times more likely to show school improvement in student outcomes than schools that are weak in 3 or more 5 Essentials. Additionally, a low score and even just one of the 5 essentials reduces the likelihood of improvement to less than 10%. You're less than 10% likely to improve student outcomes. So this is powerful data to include, particularly by adding a measure. It allows us to reduce the weight for the assessment data, where we don't have trend, and we have limited data for the year. So this adds another sort of data point into that section of renewal. The other thing that we looked at in renewal is in the academic section is the fidelity to charter and overall application. So this is a qualitative measure that is scored by our Charter and Operating Schools Advisory Board. And so it's looking at a variety of things, like is the school delivering on the mission and vision and programming that it detailed and promised to in its charter or application? Is the school using data to support and foster student growth and achievement and address challenges in that data, particularly for all student groups? Is there clear and comprehensive plans in place for professional learning that are informed by student performance and data? When they're making changes to curriculum, are they aligned to improving in areas that foster student growth? Does the application demonstrate the school has a positive environment and is in high demand by families, students, and staff? And evidence that the school really has clear plans and processes for dealing with challenges. Like, we know that schools are complex places, so there will be challenges. So do they know their data, and can they provide evidence of what they're doing to address those challenges, particularly in the areas of student performance, enrollment, student attendance, dropout rate, attrition, and choice? The next section is the effective programming for all racial ethnic groups. And so this is considered when a school has enough diversity. It used to be considered as part of that fidelity charter overall application metric that we just looked at on the prior slide. We made it its own measure in 2019-20 because of the importance of this measure. And so what we're looking at is what's happening with the student data for each student and different racial ethnic groups, how that data compares to the district mean for each of those student groups, as well as to the different percentiles for each of those student groups. Evidence that the school has taken research-based practices to address challenges in the data, and that they're using those best practices that we see move and improve student outcomes, such as providing rigorous instruction, access to rigorous instruction to all student groups, ensuring that on grade level instruction is happening within schools to student groups, looking at their practices around how they use curriculum. Is it diverse? Is it reflective of their student population, both in content and in authors? Is their staff reflective of their student population? And again, how are they addressing those things, et cetera.
Next measure we're looking at in academic success is college and career readiness. This is a measure that we align closely with Msde standards and looking at 3 different components. The first is participation in indicators of college and career readiness. So that includes the number of students that took the SAT, ACT, AP, or IB exams, are enrolled in credit-bearing college courses, or are enrolled in CTE courses. Student success in meeting objective standards in those areas. So meeting specific scores for the ACT or the SAT, AP exams, IB exams, or the completion of a CTE pathway. And also the number of students who are enrolled in college within 16 months of high school graduation. We also look at graduation rates for high schools. This is the rate, 4-year cohort graduation rate. So the number of diploma track students who graduate within 4 years of entering high school. And this measure is an average of the school's most recent 3 years of graduation data. And at the bottom, you can see the cutoff points for different ratings in this measure. And here we are looking at the weights of each measure. And we are looking at the top table for 2022-23. As we've done in previous years, we do weight the growth assessment measure higher than absolute. And we are maintaining that this year, although the weights of those metrics are a little closer than they've been in previous years, which you can see last year's weighting at bottom for reference. And as Angela mentioned, we are using the 5 essentials in the academic success part of the measure, in part to take some weight off of those assessment metrics where we don't have the trend data at all, and we have more limited years available to look at for growth. And the rest of the measures are similar to what we did in previous years for the elementary, middle grades. And you'll see in high school, we have weighted each metric equally in the rubric for this year.
Now we're going to take a look at it and the metrics that we use for this component. So this summary slide gives you a view of the various measures that we use. You will see that there are, of course, multiple measures captured. A number of these are informed by some type of a site visit. That SER refers to the School Effectiveness Review. We're going to unpack each of these in turn in just a moment, but I did want to acknowledge that there are 3 domains within that particular measure. So you'll see that reflected in a couple of different places. You'll also see survey data. You'll see instances where we have quantitative data that is also supported with some type of a narrative through the application, and that serves as a basis for discussion and review. And then you'll also see that some of these are actually scored by the advisory board when they're taking a look at those 2 things together. So we're going to take a look at these one by one as we review the school climate section. Next slide, please. So first, the School Effectiveness Review. Again, this is a qualitative process where we triangulate data by taking a look at classroom visits. We take a look at documentation from the school, and we have focus groups with various stakeholders to help us understand the strengths and weaknesses and how the school is delivering instruction to students. And so this visit is a 2.5-day site visit. We have trained reviewers that go in to collect that evidence in those 3 different ways. And then ultimately that creates a report, and it creates data that can be used as a part of this renewal rubric. So you'll see that represented there by the various domains and how that is captured. For the school climate component, you'll see there is a reference there to the highly effective instruction, along with talented people and vision and engagement. Next slide. So when it comes to the review, we've sort of spoken overall around what it collects. As it relates to each of the domains for talented people, we're taking a look at how the school creates and implements systems that support the selection, development, and evaluation of staff, as well as how they are retaining effective staff. When it comes to vision and engagement, this gets at how a school provides a safe and supporting learning environment, and how members of the community are engaged in that process. And then it also reflects whether or not the culture of the school itself reflects and embraces student, staff, and community diversity. Next slide, please. Also, as it relates to surveys, I know there was a reference earlier to the 5 essentials. We also wanted to acknowledge that the district has its own family survey that we use to collect data. about how families are experiencing instruction and their students are experiencing their schools. And that is also now used in this operator renewal process. So this year's 2021-22 survey results will be used in the process. The idea here is that we do need to have a required response rate in order for us to be able to actually assign a rating in that space. So for those that do not meet that minimum requirement, they actually will receive a rating of not effective. When it comes to the scoring of the family survey data, what we have noted here is the cutoffs that we have used historically. And as we've noted, if for whatever reason it turns out that cutoffs need to be adjusted as we obtain the data for this year's process, we will meet with operators to get feedback and discuss potential changes before those are implemented. Next slide. The next measure is around cohort retention. The idea here is that we want to get an understanding around how students are sort of continuing on in the schools that they are starting with. Really looking at where they are 2 years after their entry based on the normal entry level grade. So that is what we are looking at for cohort retention. This is a measure that's intended to sort of follow the student. It is not adjusted when it comes to transfers. But it does include students that have been held in grade. So if that is the instance in a situation, that is reflected in our numbers. This is also a measure that we look at over multiple years. And so we will use the number of years that we have available up to 5 years. Next slide. And then this next area is around chronic absence and suspension. These two are actually measures that we have the Charter and Operator-led Advisory Board take a look at. Where they are looking at both the quantitative data alongside the narrative that's reflected in the application as a way of understanding not only what does the data show, but how is the school actually addressing the needs that might be presented in looking at that data. It also allows us to factor in practices along with a form of student outcome by way of chronic absence and suspension activity in schools. Next slide. And I'm turning it over to Trevor.
Thanks, Teresa. The final measure that we look at in the school climate section is effective programming for students with disabilities. And this is looking at whether students with disabilities at the school have demonstrated a strong trajectory of growth. Is the school aware of its data and responsibilities to students with disabilities? And whether the school has any gaps in its data or has decreased gaps in the data. The data we look at includes, but is not limited to, evidence that the school provides in its renewal application about their practices around providing programming for students with disabilities, schools' academic performance, attendance rates, suspensions, chronic absence rates for students with disabilities, and an evaluation of the number of students with missed services and number of complaints reported by families, and the results of a virtual site visit, which is conducted in accordance with Msde guidance. And here we have the weights that we'll be using for the metrics in the climate section. As you can see, because of the move of the teacher and student survey data to the academics section, there it is a little bit of reapportionment of the weights for this section. And going on to the final section of the rubric, the financial management and governance. This looks at 3 metrics: audit content, internal controls, operator capacity, and the strategic leadership metric of the SCR. The audit content and internal controls is an evaluation of the operator's independent auditor's reports. We are looking for reports that show unqualified opinions and no management points for each years of the charter's term. The operator has strong performance on their short-term liquidity measure based on statements of cash flow and ratio of assets to liabilities. And for this particular measure, schools are eligible for the ratings of meets expectations, which is the highest rating available for this measure, developing, and does not meet expectations. For the strategic leadership and governance, this is another measure from the SER. This looks at how school leadership creates, defines, and cultivates effective learning environments and provides support and supervision for all staff and serving the instructional and operational needs of the school. It also includes an examination for the operator's process for evaluating the school leader and looks at all key actions in the domain. And finally, we look at operator capacity. This looks at whether the school is operating effectively and if the operator is consistently demonstrating a capacity to meet obligations as an operator, including meeting state and federal reporting requirements, critical district or federal obligations, and prudent management of grant dollars. We look at evidence including timely budget and audit submissions, monitoring reports, quarterly reports, and the frequency and severity of notices of concern and notices of reprimand that operators receive. For this measure, we are making some small updates to the rubric definitions based on stakeholder feedback, asking for a little more clarity about the notices of concern and notices of reprimand. So we have made some updates to the rubric to make that more clear for operators. Here we see the weights for this section of the rubric. Each of these measures is weighted equally, and a rating of not effective in any metric, any single metric in this section of the rubric would lead to the entire section being rated not effective overall. So now I'd like to open up the floor for any questions or comments from commissioners.
Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner Brooks, and I just wrote it into the chat, and I would love it if Angela or Trevor, if you all could just talk and like lift some of the proactive things that we are doing around sort of ensuring that charters have, you know, really clear proactive guidance around supporting students with disabilities. I looked at the other side with the metrics. It looked like that would be too far. It would be too late, because it was already about like identifying gaps in any of those metrics, and then that would sort of give their rating, you know, or to lower their rating. I would love if you already have those proactive pieces in place, and would love to hear you talk about them.
Yeah, for students with disabilities in particular, our Office of Special Education, and I think actually Dr. Brooks may be on too, and so can add some more. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. To that, but our charter schools and traditional schools get the same supports and services when it comes to students with disabilities based on student need. So they get the same kind of professional learning. They have staff from the Office of Special Education that is there to support, to guide them, provide technical assistance. So the standards and expectations are I think, really clearly laid out for schools. It also gets reviewed too. So that's an ongoing kind of review and support process through Dr. Brooks' shop. But then additionally, every year when they're, you know, setting up what their structure for how they're providing that's through the budget process, which Dr. Brooks' team participates in improving and reviewing those structures that are in place. And so when we're at the point of renewal, we're looking holistically as what's happening in terms of the efficacy of what the school is doing around their management of services and supports to students with disabilities. And it's a serious measure. Like in the past, that's been one of the key, not the only thing, but one of the key things, you know, that has led to, you know, lesser like non-renewal or like a 3-year renewal, depending on the severity of the issues. So it's something that schools have really clear guidance on, and that we hold schools accountable to doing. I'm just going to invite Dr. Brooks, Deborah Brooks, just to share a bit more.
Yep. So good evening, everyone. Dr. Brooks, Executive Director of Special Education. So what we have put in place in the Office of Special Education is we actually have a charter team, which consists of 2 special education liaisons and 2 ed specialists that support our charter schools in providing academic as well as compliance support. Where we go out and provide professional development to IEP teams that include both the IEP chair, general educators, special educators, related service providers, and implementing specially designed instruction for our students with disabilities. We also provide additional support for 504 staff at each of the charter schools as well. Just as Angela said, we support during the budget season to ensure that we have the appropriate staff to provide the specially designed instruction for our students. We also monitor throughout the school year to make sure that those services are implemented. We participate on IEP teams when there is some challenging cases that we may have, and we also do compliance checks using our monitoring tools that are aligned with Msde. And so we have seen vast improvements in the services that are being provided for our students with disabilities because we have put the charter team in place, and that team is out of my office, the Office of Special Education. So we have seen improvement in the supports that are provided to charter schools and the implementation of services for students with disabilities.
Great, thank you, Dr. Brooks. Thank you, Angela. I think just because I think we were having the new charter experience like last session, and that was up for me around like, are we clear enough with folks? But it sounds like what you're saying is that if folks have been through this process, got their renewal done, and now this is at this place where we're measuring the efficacy, as you said, Angela, around of these measures. But what it sounds like, if a charter is sort of lacking in this area, it is not because we don't have supports in place. It is because they might not have taken advantage of those supports. Okay, thank you both.
Yeah, if I can add, because you were referencing like a new school. For new schools, if you like approve a new like an applicant, there's a whole planning year before they open, and so there's a lot of training that we provide to the operator. There's like monthly check-ins, monthly trainings that we provide before the school opens, and so there's these additional supports that get put in place to ensure they know what to do. When we're considering an applicant, we're trying to, we're looking for people with expertise who know, certain key things about what to do, but like intricacies about the district that you might not know would, be covered as part of that training for anyone that's approved.
Great, thank you so much.
Are there any other questions? Angela, you always give us such a thorough presentation. There are no questions. I don't see any hands. I want to thank you and the team. This was actually an all hands on deck presentation. So I want to thank you and the team for putting this together. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. And I am also, like Commissioner Brooks, grateful that schools will have a good heads up as they prepare for the next round of evaluation. Thank you. Any operations or policy updates before we go to upcoming meetings? Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Roberts?
Madam Chair, I don't have any updates for operation.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks?
No specific one, just a reminder that our meetings are public and we welcome the public to attend.
Thank you. With that, our Teaching and Learning Committee meeting is a virtual meeting, and it's coming up on Tuesday, June the 7th at 3:30 p.m. Our executive session meeting will be on the first floor of the boardroom on Tuesday, June 14th from 3 to 5. Public board meeting is the same day. It will be virtual on Tuesday, June the 14th at 5 p.m. Operations Committee meeting is Tuesday, June 21st at 10:30 a.m. and that is a virtual meeting. And our next Policy Committee meeting will be Tuesday, June 21st at 3:30 p.m. That is also a virtual meeting. I want to ask my buddy Sion, who is with us tonight. Sion, are you ready to adjourn?
Yes.
Because we're not leaving if you're not ready. Yes, my boy. So we're ready to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move, Robert.
Thank you,
Second read.
Commissioner Roberts. Is there a second? Thank you,
Second
Commissioner
read.
Reeds. All in favor? Signify by just saying aye.
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 Have a good
Yes.
night, everybody. Be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.